It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10, our top story. Millions of motorists who bought cars using finance schemes could be in line to share billions of pounds in compensation after a decision by the city watchdog. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu accuses Hamas of the systemic starvation of Israeli hostages and calls for the Red Cross to intervene. Oasis say they're shocked and saddened after a man fell to his death during a concert by the band at Wembley Stadium last night. Tackling illegal immigration, the Home Secretary pledges to cut the amount of time it's taking to deal with asylum claims. The Met Office issues an amber warning for much of Scotland as Storm Floris approaches. In sport, it's all to play for at the Oval. England put themselves in a great position to win the deciding test against India. And we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages in our press preview from 10:30. Good evening. Millions of motorists who bought cars using finance schemes could be in line to share up to £18 billion in compensation after a decision by the city watchdog today. The Financial Conduct Authority said some firms had broken the law and many had not complied with the rules when arranging loans for customers. On Friday, the Supreme Court ruled that hidden commission from lenders was lawful, but the judges upheld a claim brought by one driver who they agreed had been treated unfairly. Rob Harris has this report.
Motorists could be eligible for payouts after all, over the loans they were sold and how they were sold. What looked like a blow for consumers on Friday was only in fact a partial victory at the Supreme Court for finance firms. While it was not illegal for car dealers to receive compensation from banks for facilitating loans, the lack of transparency over the commissions may well have been, especially if consumers believe they paid too much to fund cars as a result.
It's clear that some firms have broken the law or our rules, and it's fair that consumers are compensated when that has happened, and that's why we're going to propose a compensation scheme. We also want to ensure that this motor finance market that 2 million people rely on each year continues to function well.
The financial watchdog estimates the compensation bill could be between £9 billion and £18 billion. Most individuals will receive less than £950. And the car had to be bought under a finance scheme, including hire purchase agreements, before the 28th of January 2021. The concern is sellers were incentivised to maximise interest rates to boost commissions without telling buyers.
What we've seen on a lot of these car finance agreements, that there's no mention of the commission and there's just some sort of boilerplate wording that said we may pay a commission. And that's exactly what the Supreme Court said is unfair. Consumers deserve real redress.
Speaking to Sky News Radio, money-saving expert Martin Lewis told drivers they don't need to pay legal experts to claim their cash.
If you're one of the 3 million people who've already put a complaint in about DCAs and you know you did have a discretionary commission arrangement, then you are likely to get compensation. It's not guaranteed in 2026. If you haven't, you may want to put a complaint in now to find out if you did have a discretionary commission arrangement. Just don't do it for a claims firm, or you might end up giving away 30% of your money for no reason.
The regulator is promising a fair and easy scheme, with potential payouts coming next year. Rob Harris, Sky News.
Benjamin Netanyahu has accused Hamas of the systematic starvation of Israeli hostages and has asked the Red Cross to intervene. Tonight, Hamas said it could cooperate with the Red Cross as long as humanitarian aid corridors were kept open. Earlier, a worker with the Palestinian Red Crescent was killed when Israeli forces shelled its offices, while hospitals in Gaza claim 33 Palestinians died seeking food. This from our correspondent in Jerusalem, Sally Lockwood.
The Palestinian Red Crescent say this attack overnight, which killed one of their aid workers, was not a mistake. The location of their headquarters in Khan Yunis is clearly marked and well known to the Israeli military. The damage suggests a direct hit, but the IDF says it's reviewing the claim and the incident remains under examination. Just 48 hours after Trump's envoy visited Gaza, it seems nothing has changed on the ground. Selwan Al-Kutras had been waiting in line for aid when her bag was searched and she was brought to meet Steve Witkoff.
I am 30 kilos only from running every day to bring food to my kids.
She went there after her son was shot and she went to look for food for him.
Diplomacy has so far done nothing to stop the distressing images of starvation and suffering in Gaza. These children with medical conditions now also have malnutrition and are being cared for at a UN school in Gaza City. This mother says she has no baby formula or nappies for her two sons.
I can't meet any of their needs. Their health is constantly deteriorating. Youssef weighted 14 kilograms before the war, but now he weighted 9 kilograms. Amer weighted about 9 kilograms, and today he weighted 5.8 kilograms.
Distressing images have emerged on both sides. The release of this video of hostage Eviatar David looking starved in an underground tunnel appears to have hardened Israel's position. Benjamin Netanyahu wrote on X, Hamas's starvation lie is being spread around the world. But the reality is that systematic starvation is being carried out against our hostages, men and women who are subjected to severe and brutal physical and mental abuse. The world cannot remain indifferent to the shocking images that are reminiscent of Nazi crimes. In response to the hostage video, inflammatory scenes in Jerusalem's Old City. Far-right minister Itamar Ben-Gvir led settlers in loud Jewish prayer in the sacred Muslim area of the Al-Aqsa Mosque and called for annexation of the Gaza Strip. Hamas is hardening its position too. At what cost to its own people? Refusing to disarm unless an independent Palestinian state is established. It's hard to see a way through the political deadlock. Israeli hostages and Palestinians in Gaza left to suffer the consequences. Sally Lockwood, Sky News, Jerusalem.
More than 50,000 children are estimated to have been killed or injured in Gaza since the 7th of October attacks, according to the United Nations. Now efforts to bring some of those injured children to the UK from Gaza for medical treatment are being accelerated by the government. It's being suggested that up to 300 children could be brought here for treatment on the NHS. A warning that this report from Shingi Marike contains images of a severely injured child, which may be distressing.
At Heathrow this week, a sight still too rare. 15-year-old Majid arriving for urgent treatment. He is just one of 3 children from Gaza, allowed into Britain for medical care in 22 months of conflict. All of them privately funded. With the humanitarian catastrophe in Palestine worsening, the government has until tomorrow to respond to a legal challenge over its decision not to evacuate critically ill children.
The reasons that the government has been relying on for not medically evacuating so far is that they've been supporting treatment options in Gaza and the region, and also that under the immigration rules, people can apply to privately access medical treatment in the UK. Now, the reality is that those options are simply inadequate.
In a statement, the Foreign Office said, "We're taking forward plans to evacuate more children from Gaza who require urgent medical care, including bringing them to the UK for specialist treatment where that is the best option for their care. We're working to do that as quickly as possible." This pledge comes amid reports by the Sunday Times that up to 300 could be arriving here for desperately needed NHS treatment. Dr. Wasim Saeed has been operating on children in Gaza and seen their suffering firsthand. Back in the UK, he receives regular updates, many of them harrowing, including this last night.
On a blood-spattered floor, there are 3 or 4 children. They have major burns. They are screaming in agony.
Although he welcomes medical evacuations, he says the government's priority should be getting medical care to children on the ground in Gaza.
Thousands of injured children are suffering immeasurably, and that will only stop when the fighting stops and the killing stops, the maiming stops, and that is the urgent need that needs to be addressed. And whilst any doctor will welcome the evacuation of a few lucky children, this is a mere drop in the ocean compared to what really needs to be done.
Majid suffered a number of facial injuries after Israeli tank shells exploded near him and his friends in February last year. He is one of more than 50,000 children killed or injured since Israel's war on Gaza began, following the October 7th attacks carried out by Hamas. Here now with his loved ones, they are hopeful he will heal. But with so many others like him needing urgent help too, the pressure on the UK government to do more for Gaza's wounded children will only grow. Shingi Marike, Sky News.
Oasis say they're shocked and saddened after a man fell to his death during last night's concert at Wembley Stadium. Police in London say the 40-year-old man was found unresponsive at around 10:20 p.m. The incident happened during the latest in a run of stadium shows for the band's Sellout World Tour, their first since splitting in 2009. Tonight's concert at Wembley went ahead as planned. Wembley Stadium released this statement. Last night, Wembley Stadium medics, the London Ambulance Service and the police attended to a concert-goer who was found with injuries consistent with a fall. Despite their efforts, the fan very sadly died. Our thoughts go out to his family, who've been informed and are being supported by specially trained police officers. The police have asked anyone who witnessed the incident to contact them. New measures to tackle illegal immigration and the backlog of asylum claims are being pledged by the Home Secretary. Yvette Cooper said today she plans to drastically cut the amount of time it's taking to deal with asylum applications and appeals. There's also a new crackdown on social media adverts posted by people smugglers, as our political correspondent Rob Powell reports.
More protests this weekend outside a London hotel thought to be housing asylum seekers. Those inside looking out on the anger as the government searches for new ways to lower the temperature. Now, social media adverts like these from smugglers selling channel crossings will be targeted with the creation of a new offence punishable by up to 5 years in prison.
I think it's 22,000 of these adverts have been taken down over the last year or so. So there is good work going on. That has to carry on. But we also want to actually go after the individuals and criminalise what they are doing in that they are selling this false narrative that you can safely travel illegally to the United Kingdom in a small boat for a sum of money.
People like Aman Hassanzada, seen in this online video in which he's praised as the best and bravest smuggler. Zada was jailed for 17 years in November. Critics argue powers to tackle these criminals already exist, and these new laws will do little to put people off crossing the channel. To help do that, the Home Secretary has said she'll bring in new rules to cut the backlog of outstanding asylum claims. Yvette Cooper told the Sunday Times she'll overhaul the current system when Parliament returns in the autumn in order to speed up the appeals process. On average, it takes 54 weeks for an appeal to be heard after an asylum seeker has had their claim rejected. That's led to a backlog of just over 50,000 outstanding appeals as of March, a record high. And that's on top of almost 79,000 asylum claims that are waiting for an initial decision. One way the Home Office wants to speed up the appeals process is by restricting when people can claim under the European Convention on Human Rights. But there's also talk of revamping the broader system to introduce tighter deadlines within which people will have to file their appeals.
We've seen the speeding up before. We've seen the speeding up of the initial asylum claims, and that's resulted in a huge number of appeals, as just been stated. And why is that? Because individuals, those that are assessing the claims, are often relying on out-of-date reports.
This is why there's pressure to act. Small boat arrivals crossed 25,000 this week, faster than in any previous year. The government now keen to keep its efforts in the public eye. Crises around the world, creating a political crisis here. Rob Powell, Sky News in Westminster.
An amber weather warning is in force for much of Scotland tomorrow as Storm Floris moves in. The Met Office issued the warning for wind between 10 a.m. and 10 p.m. tomorrow. There are also yellow wind warnings in place down to Manchester, as well as covering all of Northern Ireland between 6 a.m. and midnight tomorrow. Tens of thousands of people have marched across the Sydney Harbour Bridge, calling for greater aid deliveries to Gaza and a ceasefire. That was despite pouring rain and police attempts to stop the event going ahead on crowd control concerns. A volcano has erupted for the first time in more than 600 years on Russia's far eastern Kamchatka Peninsula, days after a massive 8.8 magnitude earthquake. Pictures show a towering smoke plume which is tracking eastward towards the Pacific Ocean. Pope Leo has celebrated his largest event since his appointment in the spring. He addressed a crowd of about 1 million young Catholics, telling them that they are a sign that a different world is possible. The enormous Mass was part of a week-long series of church youth events. A memorial service has been held today for some of the British victims of the Air India plane crash. The passenger plane came down almost 2 months ago during a flight to Gatwick Airport. 247 people lost their lives. The families of some of those who died have been telling us how mistakes in the aftermath of the tragedy have compounded their grief. Ashna Haranag reports.
Almost everyone in this service knows of someone who died on board Air India Flight 171. Miten Patel knows too. His parents, Ashok and Shobna, were returning from a trip of a lifetime when the plane bound for Gatwick crashed moments after takeoff. The ring his father was wearing is now his only surviving possession.
Dad was in the left-hand side, there was a middle seat, and there was Mum on the right-hand side, and Dad used to wear it on his little finger here. So Dad would have just reached out for Mum's hand. He would have done that in any situation. So they would have both been holding this when that accident happened.
Their funeral was just days ago, delayed after the family learnt that other remains were found in his mother's casket.
The CT scan showed that with Mum's remains, there were further remains. I don't know what they were, I don't know how many. I think there should be a level of responsibility taken. That why did that happen? Where was the flaw in that process? I mean, I do understand that whole situation. People were rushing, people were very tired, you know, to get all the remains, then having to separate them by DNA. It's a long process, but really, it is very upsetting.
Upsetting, and for families unfathomable. This was the way many of the victims' families learned about the disaster on June the 12th. Which killed 241 people on board. The nature of the tragedy so far away has left loved ones here at a loss.
Because we weren't really allowed to see the bodies, so I don't think I've really come to terms with it. I still think I'm dreaming, and it's not really real.
Komal's brother Sunny and his wife Manali were in their 30s. The holidaymakers were due to fly back to the UK a week before, but changed their minds. Komal had called them just before takeoff, making plans for the moment they landed. But that moment never came.
I think they were like the heart of my kids. Whenever they walked into a room, they just filled up the room with laughter and happiness.
As a family, we're devastated that why two people so young, so much energy, who brought so much into our family can just sort of gone in one day.
It took just one day to shatter hundreds of futures. It'll be down to the people around those left behind for hope and healing. Ashna Haranag, Sky News.
Time now to get all the very latest sports news with Mike.
Staying connected is vital for business. Sky Business sponsors this report.
You got more chance of winning the lottery than making it as a professional footballer.
I think your responsibility is to guide them in the same direction as I went myself.
Things aren't just handed to you on a plate. I think you have to fight for them, and it's probably only the tough that survive, really.
Natural skills is not enough. The impact has to be straight away.
Don't let anyone tell you what you can and can't do.
If you have that belief, then that's the most important thing.
Keep it fun for as long as possible. If you love what you do, you'll be able to get through the tougher times.
If you're going to make it as a professional, pressure's coming, so we don't want the kids feeling it prematurely.
The top club, we don't have time and space to grow up the young. He plays if he's good enough.
Whether it's playing in the parks, competing in cages, or showcasing skills on the streets, for so many young boys, the dream is to become a professional footballer. But the reality is, 0.06% of them will ever achieve that dream. The stats, newly released after extensive research by Sky Sports, make difficult reading for all those aspiring youngsters. 1.65 million boys play our national sport, but of those, less than 1% of them make it into a club's academy system. From there, just 9% of those go on to make a single professional appearance. At the very top level, in the Premier League, the numbers are even smaller. Only 1.5% of academy players make it there. For those who do, it's a job like no other. For the vast numbers who don't, the reality can be hard to take. This is the home of football. For any young English academy player, the dream is to play here, at Wembley. We know that the journey to get there is incredibly difficult, but what's behind that journey? People know the statistics that so very few players go on to make it as a professional. But what's the truth behind those statistics? And how do young academy players make it to the very top? The starting point for this is to meet a man who wants to know more about academy football. He's spent more than 50 years in the professional game. He had 400 matches as a player and over 1,000 as a manager. It's fair to say he knows a thing or two about professional football.
This was my home for 16 years, Dolphin Street. Hasn't changed much. 8 of us lived in that house. You can't believe it, can you? Irrespective of your upbringing or you know, where you're from, you know, it's that spirit that hopefully you can galvanise into be determined enough to be successful. You can be a working class boy with ambitions. This is Newport Rec. I spent a lot of my childhood here playing football. Just across the road was Pill YMCA, and I played for them when I was 8, 9 years of age all the way through. My father worked across the road at Whitehead Steelworks. You've got...
Sky Business sponsors this report.
The family of a young mother who was murdered 20 years ago have issued a new plea for information on the anniversary of her death. Lucy Hargreaves was killed in Liverpool on the 3rd of August 2005. Kevin Powell, described as Britain's most wanted fugitive, has been on the run ever since after fleeing while on bail. Our crime correspondent Martin Brunt has been talking to one detective who believes police should have been caught the suspect.
Kevin Powell is arguably Britain's most wanted man, but for 20 years there's been no confirmed sighting, word or trace of him. He's wanted over the murder of a young mother of 3, Lucy Hargreaves, and the murder of teenager Liam Kelly. 6 years ago, the police failure to find Powell prompted former Scotland Yard detective Peter Blexley to launch his own investigation, but he hasn't tracked him down either.
Kevin Powell has remained hidden because he is funded, protected, looked after, and of huge value to global, serious and organised crime. He's a very valuable asset.
It was 20 years ago today that 3 men burst into the Liverpool home of Lucy Hargreaves. They were looking for her boyfriend, but they shot Lucy dead and set her home on fire. In a statement, her family said, "The way we lost Lucy is not something families can ever truly come to terms with. It is still incredibly difficult and painful to think about. Over the past 20 years, people will have talked with family and friends. A number of people were contacted by males using a phone that was stolen, along with a vehicle used in Lucy's murder. We appeal directly to them to please come forward. Now is the time. The family have had no justice. In 2007, 2 young men prosecuted for Lucy's murder had charges dropped after a judge said there was insufficient evidence against them.
There remains 3 males responsible for this offence, and in terms of our investigation, we are still seeking justice for Lucy's family in relation to all 3 males involved, and potentially any other persons who were involved in helping set up the murder.
Police believe Paul fled to Alicante in Spain. There he hid among the vast expat community. 4 years after he vanished, I went to Spain and picked up his trail.
He was here for the virtually the whole of the summer season, you know.
And what was he like? What do you remember?
He was quite affable, you know. He used to come in, drink, eat, whatever.
And that holiday complex was in Torrevieja, where I've been. Yeah, and they did see him there. I sat down with a man who gave me a long, long tale of all his doings and engagement with Kevin Parle. He was bold and he was brash and he had a girlfriend at one point, and the police actually should have captured him there, but they were too late.
At 6 feet 5 inches tall, red-haired with a small face scar and a Scouse accent, Parle shouldn't be difficult to spot. There have been reports of him in Australia and Dubai. 10 years ago, police issued these images to suggest how he might have aged. Could be one very good reason, of course, why you can't find him and why the police can't find him, and that's because he's dead. How likely is that?
I can think of many reasons why certain criminals would want to get rid of Kevin Parle, because he could, in terms of evidence about the cases that he's wanted for, should he flip and become a witness for the Crown, that would be highly damaging for a lot of very tasty criminals.
Even after 20 years, there may still be someone willing to share vital information about Lucy's murder. They're urged to call police or the Crime Stoppers charity. Martin Brunt, Sky News.
And if you think you have any information relating to this story, please contact Merseyside Police by calling 101 or speak to Crime Stoppers anonymously on 0800 555 111. Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's newspapers in the press preview. When we come back, I'll be joined by the Associate Editor and columnist for the Financial Times, Stephen Bush, and the Contributing Editor at The Times and Sunday Times, Cindy Hugh. Amongst the stories we'll be discussing, this on the front of The Guardian. Their headline, millions in line for payouts over car finance mis-selling scandal. We'll be right back. Do stay with us.